The biggest news right now, it's been confirmed, the NFLPA, the Players Association, told the players that there will be no 2020 preseason games this year in the NFL. So the NFL preseason is canceled. And, now most of the NFL heard this news, and they were so happy, they celebrated, it was a big deal, and they were just grateful. Because players hate playing games that don't matter, where they're not paid, and they're risking injury. Why would you want to play in the preseason if you're a starter in the NFL? There's no benefit, they don't want it, they don't want to play. And there's a small group of players that are affected. We'll talk about them down the road in a minute. But first I want to say, I could not believe my ears when I heard someone call this move, the cancellation of the NFL preseason. Someone said, this is a massive deal. It's a big problem. I can't believe it. And I really don't buy it. People are saying, this is going to greatly affect week 1 of the NFL season. We're going to see sloppy games and teams aren't going to be ready. Week 1's going to be a mess in the NFL. I just don't agree. I don't, maybe there's going to be a little tiny bit of sloppy play the first drive or two, because teams they haven't played in a while. It will be their first live, real football game. But after the third drive, everything's going to be normal. The first quarter of the first game, you're going to figure it out, and second quarter is going to be great. Make no mistake, the NFL preseason is meaningless for most of the NFL, and it's really wild, and it's just weird to me how people have overreacted and said that's this really important thing. I don't buy it at all. Now here's something crazy. So Aaron Rodgers got a new coach last year, which means a brand new offense to learn, a new system. And you would think, well, he better play in the preseason. He's got to make sure he's on the same page as his receivers and the offense around him. If they're going to be in sync, Aaron Rodgers has got to play in the preseason to make it work. And I ask you, how many games do you think, and Aaron Rodgers made it to the NFC Championship game last year. He had a great year. How many games do you think Aaron Rodgers played in the NFL preseason? New offense, new coach, new system. Oh, wait, guess what? Aaron Rodgers didn't play in the preseason. He didn't touch the field one time during the preseason last year in 2019. Did not throw a pass. Oh, but the preseason is very, very important because you can't be ready without the preseason. And people keep saying, it's going to cause sloppy play. Shut up. Drew Brees, how many passes did Drew Brees throw in the preseason? 6. Drew Brees had one drive the entire preseason last year, threw 6 passes. That's it. Tom Brady, 3 drives, 2 punts. He stayed until they got a touchdown on the third drive. They got a touchdown, 12 passes, 75 yards, 3 drives. That's the entire preseason for Tom Brady last year in 2019. Matt Ryan threw 616 passes last year during the regular season. How many in the preseason? 28. Now, Lamar Jackson threw the ball 16 times in the preseason. He won the NFL MVP. My point is this. Stop telling me that losing the preseason is a massive deal. It's not a big deal. There's only one quarterback in the NFL that's going to be affected by not having the preseason. It's Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow was the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. He is expected to be the Bengals starter day 1, week 1. And my evidence for this is look at Kyler Murray last year. Kyler Murray played the first 3 weeks of the NFL preseason last year. He actually had a solid amount of throws, a solid amount of time last year. He was also a number 1 overall pick and the Cardinals starter day 1, week 1. But Joe Burrow is the only quarterback expected to play week 1 of the NFL season and be the starting quarterback in the NFL this year. Nobody expects Justin Herbert to play. Tua is expected to not play. They got Ryan Fitzpatrick. They got Tyrod Taylor in LA. And the reality about Joe Burrow is preseason or not, this year was always going to be a learning and growing year for Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. So how big of a deal is it on quarterbacks to not have the NFL preseason? It's not. It's not a big deal at all. Now, for backups, the preseason is not meaningless. For starting players in the NFL, nobody wants to play the preseason. Nobody wants to get hurt. It's meaningless for you. But if you're a backup, if you're an undrafted free agent, or you are a guy who's, they keep 53 guys on the roster, if you're number 54, the preseason is a massive opportunity. It gives you an opportunity to show what you can do on film. Video evidence of your skills. And film is very valuable. Let me tell you, a little over a year ago, I started playing college football again for a brief period. And I had to gather my film. And without film, I could not have made that happen. If I didn't have film and I had to literally show them video of me throwing at the time to make it clear, no, I can still play. I can still throw the ball. I had to film myself at a park to show them I still have the ability to throw the football. Without film, it's really hard to get a job or get a scholarship. Film gets people paid. It's very, very valuable. And so losing the NFL preseason is a loss for guys at the bottom of the NFL, guys you've never heard of, people who are backups that make the league minimum. They care tremendously. Now, for a long time, there's been this debate in the NFL. Is the preseason even needed? And some people say, astoundingly yes. Some people say no. And the question really is, how do you evaluate players without the preseason? This is why I love the XFL so much. The XFL, to me, was great because it was an opportunity to give players a chance to play. We'll talk about the XFL in a minute. I want to say first, though, coronavirus has changed a lot of things. And I gave you a whole reason why it's kind of meaningless. Players don't want to get hurt. They don't get paid. It's not a good deal for the players, especially the starting players. It matters for a small amount of people. I have a solution for that in a minute. But we've lost so many things during coronavirus, and some of those changes are going to be permanent. My favorite bar is gone. Low Bar, downtown Vancouver, Washington, gone forever. Out of business, closed, gone. And kind of like my favorite bar, something that's actually a true loss that I'll be sad about, I really, really hope that the NFL preseason is one of the things that we lose during coronavirus and never comes back. It'd be great. It's not needed. People keep telling me it's so important. College football doesn't play a preseason game. I mean, yeah, they have non-conference games, and some of those teams play cupcakes week 1 or 2. But USC Alabama was week 1 this year. That's a big game. It matters. It's super important. There's no preseason leading up to that. You practice a bunch. You can't convince me that the preseason is super important. Drew Brees threw 6 passes in the preseason. He's not going to miss out on anything this year. Practice is enough for him. I don't buy it. Not having a preseason, by drive number 2, Drew Brees is ready to go. He's got one drive to make it work. And guess what? In the one drive Drew Brees played last year in the preseason, he scored a touchdown. I just don't buy it that Drew Brees needs a bunch of time to prepare. It's the same around the NFL. Aaron Rodgers, in a new offensive system, did not touch the field once during the NFL preseason last year. That says enough to me. It's just not important. Now, one of the rumors that keeps circulating around that I keep having people send me this article over and over again. It's different articles, but it's the same story repeatedly. Is there are rumors that somebody's going to buy the XFL. And people forget the XFL was working. It was going pretty well before coronavirus, they ran into a pandemic. XFL's going well. It's a good football league. Bam, global pandemic, got to shut down players. I know people in the league, they had the virus. The entire team got it. It was a big deal. And because it was a side project for Vince McMahon, the owner of the WWE, he put it on the side to try to make sure that he's like, look, my main business, the WWE, has to survive. And the XFL got left on the back burner. A pandemic is a really bad time to start a side business, a side venture. It's just not a good time. And I love the idea of branching paths based on decision-making where, and there's a world of infinite timelines. And if there is a world of infinite timelines, it's silly. I'm putting on my silly hat. I love this kind of stuff, though. So my point is that in the world of infinite timelines, there is a possible future where enough decisions are made in the right order where both the NFL preseason is completely gone moving forward, they don't bring it back, and then maybe the XFL gets bought and becomes a league again. And in that possible future, the XFL could be a place for backups that are on the fringe of the NFL to play a little bit, gather film, and show coaches what they can do. That's a great solution. It's not. This is like the dream of dreams of dreams. It's if the right things all happen in order, this could happen. So the NFL's got this weird issue where the league, most of the league hates the preseason. Players don't want to play. They're not interested. And you definitely don't want your starters getting hurt. We watched Darius Geis last year tear his ACL in the preseason for the team in Washington in a meaningless game where he wasn't getting paid. That's a really, really bad look. Or Julian Edelman a couple years ago, preseason, tore his ACL. Not good either. With no money on the line, what's the incentive? The preseason is ridiculous. It's nonsense. And I do acknowledge, even without the preseason, there still would be a need for some players to have a way to gather film and show NFL teams what they could do and earn opportunities. And I think if the XFL comes back, it'd be a great way for players that are on the fringe of the NFL to step in and show what they can do. I loved the XFL. I thought it was great. It was kind of that middle ground between college football, a little better than college football talent-wise, just underneath the NFL talent-wise, that perfect middle ground. I would love to see the XFL come back. Now, here's another thing that will be affected by not having the preseason. Forget playing on the field. Football is football, whether you're in a building, a dome, no matter where you are, football is football. High school field, college field, practice field, doesn't matter. You know the game of football. But one of the impacted things that not having an NFL preseason is going to be, one of the things that's going to be impacted is there's no rehearsal. There's no dress rehearsal. There's no day to practice the logistics of game day. What that means is that week one for a rookie will be the very first time that they've done a lot of that stuff, experiencing a game day routine. And if I was a coach in the NFL, I would take a 24-hour period. You sacrifice a day to simulate a game day experience. Sleep in the team hotel. This is the bus to ride over to the stadium, especially because this year is going to be a little bit different and weird with coronavirus. You especially want to take your team through the motions anyway, where you go, here's a stadium. Here's what it's like. Here's a team hotel. Here's what it's like to move stuff from your locker at the practice facility to the game day site. Let's go through the motions. Let's scrimmage. Let's practice on the stadium field. Let's get a rhythm so you know what it's like. Because what you don't want is for the very first time, week one, a player goes to the stadium to be their first time going through that entire routine. It's those little tiny details no one notices. Oh my gosh, I left blank. I left my stupid socks that are important to me for my undersocks. Whatever it is, you want to figure out that routine earlier than later. But again, I want to repeat this. When it was announced that the NFL preseason was canceled, the majority of the NFL celebrated. They were happy. They were like, yes, we don't have to play in meaningless games. We're not going to risk injury. We're not going to play in games where we're not getting paid. College football doesn't have a preseason. I just don't buy into it. Again, I go back to Aaron Rodgers didn't play last year in the preseason. Took his team to the NFC Championship game. Tom Brady had 3 drives, 12 passes, 75 yards the entire preseason. Lamar Jackson, 16 passes the entire preseason. Stop telling me it's this crazy important thing. It's not. I don't even know what happened to the quarterback. I didn't look into it because it's enough to me. I do feel sad for undrafted guys. Why does the NFL, big picture-wise, need a preseason? They don't really need it, but it's the benefit of the preseason is it gives the players at the bottom of the NFL, guys on the fringe, an opportunity to show what they can do, put stuff on film, and losing the preseason is not a big deal, but it does impact those guys, and I feel bad for that small amount of people, guys that are undrafted, guys who have a harder road already in the NFL, that now don't have preseason games to prove what they can do. But big picture-wise, the preseason does not matter. This is not a big story. It's not significant. And I'm so shocked that people overreacted to that. And I know that's hard to convince you. People are probably really angry at me. How could you say that? Because I'm sure the entire day yesterday, people heard sports commentators say, oh, it's such a big deal. We're going to miss the preseason. And I just talked about it for 14 minutes in a row. So I get it. I know you're like, it's a big deal, Zach. It's not a big deal. It's going to be okay. Week one's going to be fine. Give it one drive. Tom Brady's going to figure it out. I'm really not concerned. Don't act like players aren't going to practice. They're going to be fine week 1. And I just don't buy into this fact that, oh no, the preseason's such a big deal. It's not.